Hi, everyone. How are you? It's Monday. I'm a minute early because I'm so excited about my guest today. And I always feel like it takes just a moment for us to all get situated. But I see Cheswick there. Yay. Okay, welcome everyone. Hi. Okay, it's now 1:30. I was just saying, Cheswick, I've been so excited about this conversation that I wanted to get started early. So let me go ahead and let you join. Fingers. It's like magic. It's like the magic wand. Are you there? Thought I said accept. Let's try again. Accept.
Hello. How are you?
Yay! Oh, how are you? I'm so happy to see you. I've been looking forward to this for weeks.
Same. I'm so excited to be here, and I've felt your energy through emails, but even more so talking to you now.
Oh my
God.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to introduce you formally to our followers and the people that are watching this later, because your bio is incredible, and I just can't wait for everyone to know more about you, this special day that we are having today, and to learn more about your organization. So for all of you, you're in for a treat. This is Cheswick Tsunoda, and she is a mother of 4 boys, a documentary filmmaker, and the founder of No More Under, which is a Black-led nonprofit organization dedicated to saving lives through water safety education, legislation, and increasing equitable access to swimming lessons and tools. And Cheswick is passionate about drowning prevention with a specific emphasis on equity in aquatics and expanding water safety accessibility. Her commitment to this effort can also be seen in her legislative advocacy. And additionally, as if that's not enough, she recently produced, directed, and starred in her first feature documentary, Drowning in Silence, about the grief she experienced after losing her son to drowning. And you're here. You are amazing. You are lighting up this whole screen. We so appreciate you being here on this special day. Will you tell our followers more about you and how you help families?
Yep, sure. And it's so funny because what we don't get across on email is pronunciation. So actually, it's Shay like butter. I like to say that, Shay like the butter, and Zik like Isaac. So
do you know what? I have to just tell you that I almost, in our email exchange this morning, was like, I just want to double check about the pronunciation. And then I must have in my brain thought, oh no, I got it. Thank you.
No, you are not the first.
Well, and names are important, so I really do appreciate that. Shay's see, I felt like we were so connected already, like I just knew that or whatever. So, Shayzik, thank you.
I love it.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, so, I am not the biggest water person. It's not something that, I sometimes consider. Our program director was a world swimmer. She swam all through college, and that hasn't been my experience. And I would not be in this space if it were not for my son. So, I had 4 boys. We did swimming lessons. Teacher Susie is our local swim instructor. You go to her backyard and do the whole deal. I knew that swimming was important. I live in, we live together here. We're in Washington State, and we're surrounded by water. So I knew the importance. I knew how to swim myself, but didn't realize some of the statistics, and didn't realize how quickly tragedy can happen. So we were in a backyard pool, 4 adults to 7 kids, and my son, while at some point was playing on the steps, at some point was not, and was face down in the water. And I can't even express what you feel in that moment when you see something like that, and you kind of go into shock. We did everything truly that we could. I've played it over and over again. Post, is there something I could have done before? Yes, and we'll get into that. But post, we did everything we could, and we're at the hospital for a while, and he did not make it. He donated his organs, and there's a little girl in Portland with his heart right now. So you know, he does live on in a way. But ultimately, I took about a year to kind of figure it out. I had a 1-year-old at the time, in addition to my 2 other sons that, you know, I think 6 and 4. So I had to mom, right? You have to like show up for your kids. I had to pick him up every day out of the crib, feed him, get boys to school. And it took me really a year to figure out what I could do. And it started
say, like, just
go
pausing
ahead.
there. And I have 3 children. To have a 6, a 4, a 1-year-old, and we've talked about my personal connection with this too. Like, that's the part that I cannot fathom. That year of even just that next day, that week, that month. And I know I've, you know, just really processed it with my dear friend. And was, I mean, was there anything that stood out to you that helped move through, or was it literally just one foot in front of the other and moving your body through and forcing yourself to wake up and go to sleep every night?
Yeah. I was on medication to help me sleep because I could not sleep. And when I did sleep, it was, I just had PTSD at that point. So, I really do give it to my children, because if I didn't have to do something for them, I wouldn't have done for myself. You know, it's like, yeah, I wish at some point that I could convey the feeling, but I don't want anyone to have to feel this. So, it is, everyone handles it differently. And that's something that I've really been able to understand through, whether it's, I belong to a group called Families United to Prevent Drowning. I've been to Compassionate Friends meetings. And so dealing with the grief, I understand that it is a unique situation and experience, and people get through how they get through. And you respect any and all ways that people get through. And so my way, and probably still to this day, is I stay incredibly busy. It doesn't give me a lot of time to sit with my feelings. So it is the way that I survive. And trust me, there are moments where I am forced to stop. Your body, when it needs it, forces you to stop. Whether it's sickness, whether I just can't move. There, around his anniversary, around his birthday, I just know I'm wiped for a minute. And I'm very grateful to my therapist for telling me to, I remind myself, you know, before it's coming, hey, clear your schedule. This might be, you need to be gentle with yourself. But otherwise, I stay incredibly busy, and I've really thrown myself into this work, and thrown myself into creating a legacy for Yori's life, as well as making sure people don't, it's preventable. Like, this tragedy is 100% preventable. And the more people we are able to share the information with, the more it spreads. And even thereafter, you know, the more people get water safe and comfortable, and, you know, we shift generations by sharing
and the body keeps
score,
right? As we know, I mean, just that work that you're doing, even when you're like, I'm going to throw myself in, it's when your body will still give you those signs that you've got to stop or slow or process. And then here you have, I mean, I'm looking at this, like, my highlighted list of all these things that you really have thrown yourself into, so that people won't have to experience what you did. And I just want to add this piece about it being preventable, and maybe jumping ahead to Yori's Law and the legislative work that you're doing, because today, Water Safety Day, it's Water Safety Day. And so tell us what this means, why it's important, how big of a deal it is today.
Sure. So I was incredibly honored to work with Representative April Berg out of the 44th District. She, from the moment we talked, understood somehow, you know, I do think that there's a connection with grief. When people have experienced that grief, they understand a bit, but she knew how important this is, to really start getting water safety and drowning prevention into our education system. So we are baby stepping. This initial law is basically encouraging. So we're at an encouraging point of anyone that touches a child's life should use this.
Uh-oh, I can't hear you.
I'm so sorry. I'm back.
There you go. You're
I
back.
have a time limit on my Instagram, and it was like,
good for you.
You've done too much today. So, yeah. So basically, we're encouraging now anyone that touches a child's life to use today to talk about water safety. Can you swim? Do you know what to do if you are in trouble? Do you know what to do if someone else is in trouble? So technically, this law happens next year. So this is kind of an announcement this year to say that this will be Washington's Water Safety Day, and it happens to also be International Water Safety Day. So we have just like really stepped in, and the hope is that by next year we have, whether it's curriculum in schools, we're still working out all the details, but the goal is eventually we're in a mandate mode, not just simply encouraging.
You. I mean, you say it so beautifully, and this is when, so I actually like read through the legislation. Like I read through what it looks like, which is so cool. Go to their website. Job. It's so informative. Yeah. And let me just read this quote that's on the website around this from April Berg, who says, drowning is a preventable tragedy, but too many children are losing their lives due to lack of access to water safety education and resources. Drowning disproportionately affects communities of color, with 45% of Hispanic children and 64% of African American children having limited or no ability to swim. African American children are 5.5 times more likely to drown in a swimming pool than their Caucasian counterparts, while male children are twice as likely to drown. So what April Berg said is that with the passage of Yorri's Law, so this is called Yorri's Law, we're taking a critical step, and you're calling it a baby step, which it is, right, towards closing the equity gap and giving all children, regardless of race or socioeconomic status, the tools they need to stay safe in and around water. So this is the necessary first step. And then with the goal being having access to funding, having mandates, having, clear and equitable access for all children in a really systemic way, and modeling this hopefully for the other states as well, right across the board.
That's exactly it. It is like, no, you don't want any child to be left behind. Some families are able financially to, swim lessons are expensive. There's like a long wait. Even for us, we have over 600 people on our waiting list to get free swim lessons. So there are initiatives that are in place that we're working. It's so interesting because while this was happening on the state level, on our city level, our mayor recently announced the initiative called Swim Seattle, which will give kids in Seattle free swim lessons. We're starting off, I think the first cohort is 250 children, but the goal is to teach every child in Seattle, and I hope beyond, and eventually the state, to swim before the age of 10. So again, all of these things are happening, and I do feel the momentum and the positivity that's going into wanting to keep our families and our community safe.
So my husband, I worked in Seattle Public Schools for over 15 years as a school psych and school counselor. So our caseload, I would have 1,000 students on my caseload. So I was in so many different schools. And one of the schools, 15 years, I want to say it was like in the very beginning, but I worked at Dunlap Elementary, which is down in the South End, and they actually had a program where students went and got swim lessons. This school, and my husband is a PE teacher. He taught 5th and 6th grade for 19 years, but he's been a PE teacher for the last 4 years. And he's like, we talk about this all the time in PE, like why we need to be able to this should be part of every program. This should be part of school. Like kids should be learning how to swim as part of school. And it's so, the jump to get there feels so massive, but I'm also like, we should be doing that, Yeah.
Yeah, it does. it feels to me like a no-brainer. And it really is getting this into our psyche, right? And I was just going to move a baby step further of, you know, swim lessons are important, and so are life jackets. Like every time you step into a car, you sit down and you put a seatbelt on. And every time you go to a lake or open water, no matter what, you should wear a life jacket. And so we're behind, but we can still catch up. And again, it's starting in schools to start just indoctrinating almost our children to say, hey, life jackets save lives. Learning to swim, you're 88% less likely to drown if you have swim skills. It's still a possibility, but it's helpful and it saves lives. And imagine if you add that 88% of learning to swim and a life jacket on, your chances of, you know, anything bad happening are drastically
I mean, those numbers
cut.
alone, I'm a numbers person, as I say, right? I mean, 88%, right? And then meanwhile, we're looking at those numbers of 45% of Hispanic children and 64% of African-American children having limited or no ability to swim. So right there, like that's the gap that we're talking about. So you moved through that year incredible, I mean, with just absolute superhuman strength to then create No More Under. And tell us about the concept of like you mentioned it about just even bringing this idea of life jackets and some of these layers of safety in the way that described it, layers of safety.
Yeah.
Why one layer might not be enough too. Yeah.
Right. So and that is the key, right? And it is tricky because there's 7 layers of safety, and sometimes that's so overwhelming. And I really tend to, I think because this is what would have saved Yori's life perhaps, but I really lean into having a water watcher, right? Having someone solely to watch the water. And that means no socializing. That means you're not on your cell phone. Because so many times I think you're watching, you think I'm watching, and no one's watching. And literally the time that it takes you to read a text message, to answer someone back, tragedy can happen. That's how quickly it is. So I really lean into no matter what, and honestly, no matter what age, things happen. I have friends that have gone to Hawaii, and just like that, there's an adult involved, or someone is going out to save someone. And bottom line, it's something that does not discriminate, no matter, age or race. And while it does happen more likely to certain, people, ultimately it doesn't discriminate. So really leaning into the water watcher, really leaning into learning how to swim. We really need to be water safe, and teaching kind of drowning prevention strategies within those swimming skills. And ultimately the last and easiest one is a life jacket, so those 3 things right there. There's also making sure your pool is fenced. If you have, imagine there's a lake in your backyard, you should have an alarm on your door, because oftentimes these things happen, these tragedies happen when you think a child is napping and they slip out of the door. That's one thing. I know so much now, Jillian, and that's the kind of challenging thing is I know so much now that I wish I would have known, even that it's the number 1 reason children went to Fluoride die. Like, I didn't know that at the time. So again, it's knowing now and spreading the word to as many people as possible. And so that was really the original basis of No More Under, was to talk about it. And then we've slowly but surely moved into providing swim lessons for those under-resourced communities, and getting everyone, as many people, until swimming is in schools, getting as many people water
and this
safe.
is, I mean, it's that part, like, certainly that's an ideal, but it's this, the power of this day. And like you said, the purpose of this law, by just even saying it's this day. And I want to say, isn't it the month or the whole?
That's right. So this technically May is National Water Safety Month.
So I just want to reiterate for everyone that if you have any touch point with a child, that this is about advocacy. It's about awareness. It's the idea that it is preventable, that you can start to talk about it, to advocate, to educate, about these statistics, about how easily it happens, about how quickly it happens, and looking at that whole range of whether it's swim lessons, whether it's access to life jackets, whether it's the alarms on your houses, whether it's the gate, whether it's just talking to everyone and getting that awareness with your group of friends as you head into the summertime. I mean, this is really what it's about. And I know for us, you know, we're near Green Lake, where there's definitely been some tragedies. And in fact, actually just recently too. And I was just talking, I mean, to John as in preparation for this conversation, I was just saying him how excited I was to talk to you, Shazak, and we were remembering a story that his mother told me about how he slipped under. And just like that, she just happened to look out the window, thought the gate had been closed, and he had slipped out. And I said, might not even have been here. I mean, it was just how quickly it happened. So someone is asking about, can you share more about any plans for lessons in schools? And so right now there is nothing in our Seattle Public School District, like as a plan thus far, but it sounds like what you mentioned about where our mayor is saying there's going to be this program just for the city, that there's potentially some avenues that might lead toward that.
Yes. Well, let me just say, this is a call to action. I think what I'd like to see, honestly, I kind of occasionally lean into contacting the National Parent-Teacher Association, just because there's nothing scarier than an angry mom. There is nothing scarier than a mother saying, why is my child not learning this? And so I do believe that if parents and whatever parent you are or guardian of asking, is there a possibility for my child to learn how to swim in school? Is there a possibility for them to learn, at the very least, dry land education around how to be safe around the water? These are things that we can ask for from our educators. And if enough people enough people shake the trees, it will happen. I want to say make some waves. I want to make a good analogy there. But if enough people jump in the water, we'll make some waves and can really make it happen. So that is a call to action. We have on the film website, we actually have a letter that you can write to your legislators. It's really already there, because yes, this law we were really fortunate that it was passed very easily. We also weren't asking for any money. As soon as you start asking for money, as soon as you start making it a little bit uncomfortable, that's when things may not be as smooth. But if we have enough people fighting for this and enough people understanding how it's a life-saving skill, it's a life-saving skill and a lifelong exercise opportunity for people. Water is amazing, and there's so much beauty and joy and connection and community that can come from it. We just want to make sure that everyone knows what to do.
Just even using that analogy earlier that you said, about seatbelts, right? And certainly when we were growing up, we kind of would roll around in the back of the station wagon, and then things have evolved. When you have more information, when you are educated, then we can make change to save lives. And I do believe, it is a public health issue. It is a community responsibility to care for each other in this way, and for you, the work that you're doing to put this out there for everyone is just, again, I just really admire and applaud and just have such gratitude. And so you mentioned your film, and I do want to talk about this because to create a documentary. I can't even imagine the experience for you to do this, and it's called Drowning in Silence, and it was just released, everyone, on May 12th on Apple TV, Amazon Prime. And so the title alone, Drowning in Silence, like you can imagine, with all the groups that you talk to, just the title alone could be scary for parents. Why should they watch this? It's not the tell us more about the film itself and how watching it is and why watching it is so important for families. Yeah.
Sure. I do like to say it's heavy but hopeful. I can't promise you that you might not need a tissue, because it is really my story of trying to understand exactly what happened, why it happened, how it could happen, what we can do to make a difference and shift this from happening to anyone else. And I also talk to other parents that have had a similar experience. One of the interesting statistics, I guess, and it also kind of made me think of when you were saying about John's mother sharing with you, is that for every one child that dies from drowning, there are another 8 that go to the emergency room and often suffer long-term effects from that. And while John was unscathed, I want people to be able to talk about it. It's something that unless something comes up, I almost drowned, and it's something that I'd forgotten about at some point. And then I want to say perhaps just this experience with Yori, and it just brought all of that kind of back to my mind. And it's something that if everyone said those close calls,
Instagram is like, you've had enough. You're maxed out.
15 minutes. I have to do 15 minutes or else I will be there forever. So anyway, my point is that if everyone talked about those close calls, if it was like, wow, we would understand how often this happens. It's regular. So many people have stories, and it's just not something we feel comfortable talking about. And even with No More Under, the initial approach was, hey, drowning, don't let your kid drowning. And I realized how many people looked away. We honestly considered changing the name of the film because we were worried that people might be hesitant to view it. But at the same time, it's honest and it's very transparent. And at some point, you have to face a problem head on, or else it's not.
Right. And when we're talking about big changes like this, we're talking about changing laws, putting funding into space. We've got to name it. We have to say what we can't be scared of it, because then we can't take action. We've got to really meet it in that way. And I love that you say that's heavy but hopeful, because that's what's going to engage everyone to make that step, to take that step to really get behind you. So tell us more about, so we can watch the film, the documentary is out. How do you feel? How does that feel?
Yes. It's surreal, honestly. Like, I just consider, I used to work in television production and film production prior to having kids and being a stay-at-home mom. And there's a weird return to my passion and my love. And I almost occasionally will say that, my child has given me kind of like a second lot on life. Like, even though he's not here, I do remember how powerful storytelling is and can be, and how much impact you can have through content. And so it's exciting, but also at the same time, I would give it all back if Yori were here. So it's a little bit
holding those both. Mm-hmm. So how can our followers? Just looking at this whole package. We've got the nonprofit, the film, Yori's Law. We've got this month and today. So how can our followers learn more about like next steps, the law, legislation, everything affecting your efforts, the film, all of this?
So nomoreunder.org is our website. So for sure, if you head to our website, I'm pretty sure there's a little something that pops up that says, here, give us your email. We send out newsletters, and we only actually send them out during the warm months. So you won't get them all year round, but we just send them out typically, I want to say like April through perhaps December, because people are starting to go away on vacation. And we just want to make sure that when you go to Florida or Hawaii, that you're also being safe. So I would say signing up for our newsletters is a huge way to do that. The film is drowninginsilence.com. You can learn more. There's some behind the scenes on there. There's the call to action with legislation and what you can do. And I would say with Yori's Law, I'm already talking to Representative Berg about what our next steps are. And that's something that we would definitely keep updated with our newsletter. And if anyone has any amazing ideas or amazing I don't know, connections with school systems, we're definitely open to hearing. And I've recently been chatting with the Hawaii Aquatic Foundation because they have a really great system going on where they've been able to get some actual curriculum into schools, and then some waters actually in pools. So that is the hope. Mic drop moment is we have swimming in schools. No child is left behind. We all know what to do if we feel like we're drowning or if we see someone drowning. But there's a road to get there for sure. We need all the support we can get.
Someone is asking, can we host a screening in our city?
Yes, so I'm trying to think the best way to do that. I think actually if you go to drowninginsilence.com, there is a screening button and you can click on a link there, and we're doing a grassroots screening tour now. And what I have found is I love watching it by myself and taking it all in, but there's something about being in a group and in a community setting where people are open and able to talk about their experiences and talk about what you can do as a community. So we are having grassroots screenings as we speak. I'm headed to Pasadena next week actually to do a screening there with Rose Bowl Aquatic Center. So it's going and it's in motion.
This is just the beginning. And even if there isn't a formal screening, get some friends together, get your people. You know, we all have our crew that we're kind of raising our kids together, that's in the neighborhood and in the schools. Get together just as you would for anything else. I mean, we get together to do the schedule for carpooling, for sports and stuff. Like, get together and watch it together just in your home, you know, just to start to spread that word. And I wanted to say also around just the Yori's law and the legislation also, if there is, you talked about the newsletter, and we partnered last week through Sproutable. We sent to all of our people a great newsletter sharing more about No More Under. We have a link for how to support them. Obviously, they do too on their website. So if you are not on ours, also just send me a DM and I'll get you all hooked up. I'll resend our newsletter directly to you. I'll get you connected to Shazak and No More Under. So if that's just easier, just always feel free to, you know, put in the DM if you've just watched this and you're inspired. And yeah. And like I said, I think, first of all, again, you know, thank you so much for just being you and your energy, and how you have turned this really horrible tragedy that anyone, you know, would never be able to recover from into this really big movement that's going to really save so many people already, just in all that you've done so far. And I know when I first heard about your organization, it was almost too soon for me to reach back out to you from a personal story that we had in our community, just an absolute tragedy. And then it was like, just really, I want to thank you, because it was this gift that you gave to us to when we got to the end of our, like, feeling so hopeless and not knowing how else we could continue to support this dear friend of ours. And then it was like this gift that you came into my inbox and said, we're doing this, like, get on board. It really was this, like, true lifeline. I mean, just to feel like, okay, we can do something that is going to make this not, you know, anyway, you know where I'm going with that. Yeah, so emotional about it, honestly.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm glad and I'm hopeful that this is a resource. Like, I'm hopeful it's a resource to prevent tragedies, but I'm also hopeful that when a tragedy has happened, there is support. I've gotten calls from people in the hospital right after something has happened asking, what do we do? And I hope that there's just support, you know, because that's all we need is support.
I think so many people are like, you know, what can I do? What can I do? I mean, that's the part that if I couldn't even sleep thinking about how my dear friend, how could she sleep at night? Just that I would replay it over and over in my mind, that moment of finding that out, of finding her son, you know, for you, that moment that it happens, that replay that you have. And I'm just like, I mean, from a mother to a mother, I'm like, how are we not all screaming in the streets right now? Like, this is insane. Like, how is everyone still just going about their business? Like, I just felt like, oh my goodness. So to have a place like No More Under and your film and your advocacy, and specifically around the legislation, I'm so excited to continue to partner with you, continue to partner with your work, and to stay in touch. So thank you so much.
Yeah. I thank you so much just for having me and for leaning into this. Like, your followers and in your community are the exact people that need to know this information. So I just appreciate you, like I said, leaning in and giving us space to talk about it, because that's all it is, right? It's a conversation, it's awareness, and then we have action. So yeah, we're going to have a safe summer, fingers crossed, and everybody will know the best way to handle things. And remember to get those life jackets. And I actually can share a coupon with you all if you have any interest. So you can share that with your folks.
Thank you so much, Shayzik. And happy Water Safety Day. Everyone head over to No More Under, sign up for their newsletter, check out those layers of safety, consider that water watcher, consider all of these things. This is hopeful. These are actionable, easy things that we can do that's going to keep everyone safe this summer. So thank you again. Thank you, my friends. Okay. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care.